Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Crypto Insider interviews. I'm Vlad, and today my guest is none other than Charlie Lee, the inventor of Litecoin.
Hey Vlad,
Hi,
happy to be
Charlie.
here.
I never thought I would say this by the end of the year, but I'm so happy that I get to talk to you. And there's so much to talk about. There's a lot going on with Litecoin. There's a lot going on with the crypto space in general. And there are a lot of improvements being proposed to Bitcoin and Lightning. And I guess we have quite a lot to cover.
Sure, yeah.
But first of all, I was thinking that you usually don't get to talk about yourself and your background. I know that you went to, was it Stanford?
MIT.
MIT. You went to
Yeah.
MIT, you graduated, and then you got employed at Google.
Yeah, I mean, I came out to the Silicon Valley in 2000, basically at the peak of the dot-com bubble. Joined a startup, worked for a couple startups, and then ended up at Google.
How would you compare the hype and the environment? You saw the dot-com bubble, and now you're seeing what goes on with the cryptocurrencies and the whole blockchain industry. How are they similar, and what are the main differences that you observe?
Um, I mean, the similarities obviously there's a bubble and the crash, right? I think, and like just like with the internet, it was hyped up, and then there's a crash, but there's real value in the internet, and just like Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, there's definitely real value. So with Bitcoin, we're seeing like I've actually seen like two, three bubbles and crashes. So it's kind of just um, pretty kind of standard fare what we're seeing today. So I guess I'm just used to it.
Okay. But what about the enthusiasm which surrounds these technologies? I mean, we've seen the first years and we've seen how much people speculate and how they attribute some kind of value or some kind of utility to these inventions. But did you observe any other differences?
Differences with what with the dot-com bubble.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, it's definitely. I mean, it's not exactly the same, obviously. Um, the I'm trying to think. Sorry. Um, what exactly is your question asking?
I'm trying to get a comparative perspective between all the hype and the environment which surrounded the internet in its early days and how everyone wanted to be on the web and have a website. And right now, when everybody in 2017 wanted to do an ICO to get on the blockchain, and even I think the first half of 2018, the vibe was still positive that the blockchain was going to revolutionize the entire world and change everything. And I know that IBM is experimenting with a private blockchain, and maybe you have a different insight. In 2000 I was 80 years old, so there is no way I can remember that.
Yeah, unfortunately, not really, because I actually came out here pretty much at the start of the crash, so I wasn't really that into it during the bubble, right? So I didn't really pay too much attention to the bubble part of it, like because I was still in school, right? So I wasn't like investing in stocks or buying these stocks and watching it go up and then watching it crash. So yeah.
So how was it like to get a job at Google? Right now it's a very big deal, but back in the day it wasn't anything special. It was just an ambitious project trying to create the best search engine out there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get into Google that early, right? I got into Google in what is it, 2007. So back then it was already a public company, it was already big. It recently, or at that time, it acquired YouTube. And I was actually working on YouTube mobile for the first 2 years at Google. So, I mean, it was pretty cool experience working for a very successful company. Basically, anything Google launches, you get like millions of users right away. So you get to work on cool stuff, and for a company that you know is not going anywhere, that's very successful. So it was definitely a very good experience.
Would you find any similarities between the working environment that you had in Google and the one you found at Coinbase when you became an engineer?
Um, it's very different. I mean, Coinbase, when I joined, I was the second engineer. It's like two founders, Olaf and Craig, another engineer, and I. So it was very early. I mean, back then, there's there's no guarantee that Coinbase would become anything, right? It would become big, or even if Bitcoin would do well. So at Google, there's no risk of losing your job. I mean, obviously, if you don't do well, you might lose your job, but there's no risk of the company going out of business. But at Coinbase, it's a startup, right? So it's definitely very different, and I enjoyed it. It was very exciting times. Nowadays, Coinbase has gotten quite big, right? I think 500 or so employees or more. So it's getting there to a point where it's a very different company than when I joined.
And you actually left Coinbase at the peak when it was starting to become this big deal and everyone wanted to get listed on Coinbase. And it was regarded like the holy grail of cryptocurrencies because it's so easy to acquire cryptocurrencies on Coinbase.
Yeah, I mean, it's still regarded pretty highly today, right? It's the place to to get into crypto. So I mean, I think Coinbase has done an amazing job in introducing new people to cryptocurrencies.
Okay, so how did you get into Bitcoin?
I found out about Bitcoin in 2011. I read an article about Silk Road and really got really interested in the currency that Silk Road was using, a currency that is decentralized and censorship resistant, and that really caught my attention.
Did that appeal to any previous, maybe economic opinions that you had? Would you describe yourself as someone who sympathizes with the cypherpunks or has libertarian ideas?
I never really got into the cypherpunks um, ideals, I guess. But I mean, recently I've definitely learned a lot more about it. I think what grabbed me was my experience with just with gold, and I've always been interested in gold and how it's like better form of money than fiat currency, and just watching governments print fiat currencies and devalue everyone's money was just frustrating. I guess when I saw Bitcoin, I saw a way where no one, not even governments, have control over the monetary policy, and I think that's very powerful. And
Mhm.
and I think also because I understood the cryptography behind it, and since I was a software engineer, I can look at the code and see how it functions and see how it really works and why it works. So I kind of understood it right off the bat, and I guess that yeah, because of my kind of my software engineering background and my interest in code and sound money really drew me into Bitcoin.
But it didn't take you very long until you forked the Bitcoin Genesis block and created Litecoin. I know that this year marked the seventh anniversary of Litecoin.
Yeah, um, it was about like 6 months in, but it wasn't that long. But actually, at that time, it felt like a long time. Like when I first found out about Bitcoin, basically I went all in and read everything about Bitcoin. Um, the interesting thing back then is you can actually spend all your time reading up on Bitcoin, the Bitcoin forum. There wasn't Reddit or Twitter back then. So pretty much all the information about Bitcoin, everybody talking about Bitcoin was in one location. And you can pretty much read up everything going on around Bitcoin, around the Bitcoin space. You can follow basically everything, right? There's Ponzi
Mhm.
schemes, there's mining, there's all this stuff going on back then. And I pretty much dabbled in everything, right? Mining, all this different stuff going on, and obviously I created my own altcoin. Um, yeah, so it was pretty cool.
So, who are the people that you're looking up to at the time? Like posting all the time on forums, on Bitcoin Talk, and maybe expressing some revolutionary ideas that influenced you?
Um, I mean, there's definitely a lot of anonymous users. Um, Back then, Gavin was leading the Bitcoin project. I've chatted with him a few times. I met him at, I would say it's the first Bitcoin conference in New York in 2011. I think like there were about 50 people that showed up, but it was like almost all of the Bitcoin community showing up to
Mhm.
the conference. So it's pretty cool. Um, he was working on multi-sig transactions, and I kind of helped him a little bit on that. Um, yeah, it was pretty cool to kind of be so early in this space.
So when you envision Litecoin, was it always the support coin for Bitcoin, the one which maybe aids it in development? Or did you actually think of competing in the very first years?
Um, no, I've always thought that Bitcoin would be the main coin would be like the king, right? So when I created Litecoin, it was more for fun. It kind of just it caught me by surprise also because someone initially someone wanted some coding help to create a coin called Fairbricks, which is a fork of Tenebricks to make it more fair. So I helped him with the coding part. I offered to help because I understood the code and I was comfortable with it. Um, and then that project kind of failed, and then I decided that just want to do something better than all the other altcoins out there. Make a coin that is truly fair, that is simple, follow Bitcoin's um, kind of path, but just have more plentiful coins and faster, and just go with that, go with the silver to Bitcoin's gold kind of idea. And I just went ahead and did it, right? Didn't think too much of it, didn't think it was going to become anything huge. Right?
But if you take a look on CoinMarketCap and you choose the historic view, and I'm going to do that
Mm-hmm.
right now, you realize that at the time there were like 10 coins, and Litecoin was the second, and that happened on the first day when CoinMarketCap launched
Yeah, um, that's true.
in April 28th, 2013.
But before that, actually, when Litecoin when it was first announced, um, a lot of people were there were a lot of haters back then. Also, they were like, "Why do we need another coin?"
But
Believe it or
how
not,
is that different from the Bitcoin maximalists from now?
it's pretty similar. But um, actually, most people didn't think Litecoin would succeed. Like there were actually a lot of other coins out there, like Xcoin, IOCoin, uh, Tenebricks, who are doing like relatively well, and people didn't see a need for another coin. But I think because of the way I launched Litecoin, just trying to make it the most fair as possible, all these other coins had pre-mines and other stuff that were very kind of shady and helped out that were beneficial to the creators, or the creators did some shady stuff. So I think the fairness of Litecoin really helped it kind of bubble to the top.
I'm looking at the first snapshot of CoinMarketCap from April 2013, and
Mm-hmm.
Litecoin was the second biggest coin at the time. It was valued at $4.33.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, we don't hear about Peercoin, Namecoin, TerraCoin, DevCoin, and NovaCoin. And
Yeah.
to me, this is impressive. Like you stood the test of time. And I don't think you got involved 100% until last year into Litecoin. So, what do you think is the reason for this staying power and success?
Um, I think well, there's one thing. It's fair, right? So people don't like to support coins that are um, unfair. The other is, I think the silver to Bitcoin's gold um, kind of marketing term really is kind of a self fulfilling prophecy, right? So it's easy to understand, and it helps new people get in and gives them a reason why Litecoin is valuable. Um, and I think just the fact that Litecoin has been around, the network has been very stable, hasn't had any downtime, hasn't been attacked. It's protected by its own ASIC mining machine. So miners would it's the Nakamoto consensus, right? There's no reason for miners to attack Litecoin and kill their the coin that's making them money.
Uh-huh.
So that just like Bitcoin, it's well protected. um, by uh, by the right incentives, right? By game theory. Um, yeah, and it's on today. It's on like all the major exchanges, so it has very, very high liquidity. You can easily get it. So a lot of things are like work for Litecoin, and yeah, and for me, in 2013, I joined Coinbase, right? So I was working on primarily Bitcoin for about 4 years. And then last year, or was it 2 years ago, I decided that I'd like to start focusing my time on Litecoin. So last year I quit Coinbase and um, I'm dedicated to spending all my time on Litecoin now.
That's great. So, did you, or when did this idea that Litecoin is digital silver, just like Bitcoin is digital gold, come around? Where did it come from?
Um, it, I thought of it like pretty much the day I thought of Litecoin, right? So I've seen like society use gold and silver as money, um, and I saw a potential need for a silver to Bitcoin's gold because I saw Bitcoin as digital gold. So um, the idea for Litecoin to be silver is that it would have cheaper fees, right? So if you're sending um, lots of money, you would use Bitcoin because you can afford the fees. The fees relative to the percent of fees being a percentage of the amount you're sending is relatively small if you're sending a large amount. But if you're buying like coffee, on-chain transactions for Bitcoin may be quite expensive relative to the amount you're paying. So I see a need for an alternative coin that would work alongside Bitcoin to fulfill the transactional needs of everyone.
In the previous answer, you mentioned that people don't usually like coins that are unfair and have a pre-mine. But
Mm-hmm.
if you take a look right now, you have Ethereum, which had a huge pre-mine, and it's one of the most successful projects out there. You have
Yeah.
XRP, which has, I mean, over 70% of the supply, which is being held by the creators. And you also have Bitcoin Cash in both of its versions, which actually forked off at a certain block and people
Mm-hmm.
got their coins for free
Yep.
if they held Bitcoin before. So they cannot claim that they have the same amount of proof of work behind their project. They just took on from there.
Yeah. So I mean, I think some of these coins do provide value, right? So people see value in Ethereum. Not so sure about XRP, but I mean, people do see value of a coin working closely with banks. So that's why they would buy or use XRP. Um, as most people know, I'm not very fond of Bitcoin Cash. I think um, it's not very secure because it has like what 5% of Bitcoin's hash rate. So any small Bitcoin pool could attack it, or people can get enough hash rate to attack. I mean, that's why like a threat from Craig Wright is so effective at scaring everyone with Bitcoin Cash because it's possible. Right? Even if Craig Wright never plan on executing the attack, never even have the resources to execute the attack, just because by saying it, the whole everyone freaks out, and it caused the Bitcoin ABC developers to add checkpoints and yeah, to add stuff that really hurts the decentralization of the coin, just because they're afraid of this kind of attack. So things like that really hurt the sound money properties of Bitcoin Cash, and that's why I don't think it's gonna do well in the future.
Mhm. And if we had this interview a few days ago, we could actually speak about the flattening still being in place. But this morning we had a big pump by Bitcoin Cash. It went over 50% up.
It's pretty incredible. Bitcoin Cash went up more than 100% in value in the past 2 days. I mean, that's quite impressive. But yeah, I mean, I predicted the flattening would happen this year, and the reason why I predicted that is because I think the long-term value of Bitcoin Cash is is less than the long-term value of Litecoin because it's not real, it's not sound money, right? So what I'm working towards is just um, is I think Bitcoin and Litecoin is the ideals are to become sound money, right? And a new form of money that we've never seen before, where it's censorship resistant, nobody controls it, and it holds value because it has properties of money that like really good properties of money. So it's very good money, and that's what I'm working towards for Litecoin also, and for Bitcoin Cash, it's just totally it's like not the same. It's not comparable in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess I agree with that statement. But wait, what was I about to ask? I was looking at the charts. Oh yeah, when you made the prediction, it was not obvious at all because Bitcoin Cash had all the marketing, had some developers, had people like Jihan, and also had the, I'm not sure if financial, but anyway, political support of Gavin Andresen. And it seemed like a big deal at the time. They were talking about overtaking Bitcoin all the time. And
Yeah,
when you
I
made the
mean
prediction, it was bold, but people who were reading about the flattening happening last week, they were like, oh, it was so obvious. He made this the prediction that actually made sense, and it was only a matter of time until it happened.
it
But
made sense. Things make sense in hindsight, right? Just like my tweet about Litecoin price could potentially drop to $20. Don't invest unless you can withstand this volatility. I mean, in hindsight, it was like, oh wow, that's obvious. Like you shouldn't be investing last year if you can't withstand this. But at the time when I made that tweet, people think I'm crazy. I mean, I think I remember a few of the responses were like, but it's different now in 2017. Like we have futures, we have all these people interested, all these people knowing about Bitcoin and Litecoin. It's different. It's not going to drop 80, 90% anymore. But crypto does what crypto does, I guess. It's just, I mean, I think volatility will decrease over time, but we just have to be able to, you just have to be careful, right? Because this market is very volatile.
okay, I have two questions right now. One is
Mm-hmm.
related to something you implied, and I'm not sure if it was on purpose, but you referenced the tweet by John McAfee, who said last year that those who believe that Bitcoin will drop in price are actually not acquainted and have no idea about the economics of the blockchain, which are different from everything else, which turned out to be such a bad thing to say in the long term.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there's quite a few people who are very bullish on Bitcoin. I mean, I'm very bullish on Bitcoin also, right? I think the long term, um, the future of Bitcoin and Litecoin is I'm very bullish on that, right? But in terms of short term, no one knows, right? To say like Bitcoin price will reach $1 million is just it's that's really bold. That's a really bold statement. I mean, he gave a time frame of a few years, right? So
Mhm.
that's pretty bold. Will it eventually reach $1 million? Who knows, right? I think if the US dollar goes into like inflation or even hyperinflation, of course it's going to reach $1 million, right? Um, but that's like a long time away if it ever happens. Um, yeah. So, yeah. So my point is just a lot of people were really excited and bullish about Bitcoin, but no one really knows like what the price would do. Like when last year when it hit like $20,000 or almost $20,000, like nobody predicted that. Like unless you're just like pulling numbers out of the air, right? A lot of people who are smart in this space thought like hitting 5,000 is like amazing already. It was five times the previous high, right? So it goes from 500 or 200, right? The low was 200. Going from 200 to 5,000 is a 25 times increase, and that's incredible, right? So no one thought when it hit 20,000, it's like wow, how high can it really go? Right? People were thinking it's going to go to 100,000, but then obviously in hindsight, it was a bubble, and now we've crashed.
But a lot of people right now claim that you are the best positional trader in the business because you predicted the $20, which was very accurate. How did you come up with $20 out of all the values? Why was it not 100?
Um, I mean, I just pulled it out of there, right? So in my tweet, I mentioned that the price of Litecoin has previously dropped 90% from its high, right? So this is how volatile the market is. At the time of the tweet, Litecoin just hit $200. So I said, if you can't withstand it dropping back down to 20, which is a 90% drop, then don't get in, because, and I also added later on that it's if you get in, like people who can't withstand this volatility are the ones that are buying at 200 and selling at 20, and they're the ones that are losing money, right? In the long run, we see up and downs, right? So if you buy high and sell low, you're losing money. But if you can actually withstand the volatility, if you buy because thinking that um, the future is going to be good, but in the short term, it's anything can happen, and you just hodl it, right? You just during the drops, you hold on to it, and knowing that the fundamentals haven't changed, so there's no reason for this drop, right? It's going to come back. It's just a matter of time. So if you have that mentality, then you can make money in the end. But obviously, there's a risk, right? So there's a risk that Bitcoin and Litecoin can go to zero, right? It's a very experimental new thing, right? So don't invest money that you can't afford to lose, and you can potentially 10x your money, or you can potentially go to zero. So definitely be very careful. That's kind of the mindset I had, and I was trying to convey that.
Now it makes a lot of sense, but at the time you wrote the tweet when Litecoin was $200 and it went all the way up to 350 before it dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And it fluctuated at some point. So we could still see some hope in January and February. But
Mm-hmm.
after that, it just crashed on and on.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it's basically mimic everything followed Bitcoin pretty much. The alts definitely crashed a lot more than Bitcoin, but the pattern is very similar, right? Bitcoin crashed to like 6,000 and then went back to I think 12,000, 11,000, 12,000, and then now it's at 3,000, and today it's at 4,000. It's just very volatile.
And I know that in 2019, there is a halving of the mining rewards for Litecoin. And usually in this business where there's mining and there are rewards, years which contain a reduction of the rewards usually mean that the price would go up to maintain the sustainability of the mining. So do you think that Litecoin is going to have a great 2019?
Mm, in terms of, it's hard to predict the price. Like the last block halving for Litecoin didn't really affect the price. I don't really believe that the halving would um, has any effect on the price. I think I mean it should be already priced in, right? People already know the schedule um, of the creation of Litecoin and Bitcoin. I mean, Litecoin follows Bitcoin's every 4 years. Block rewards get halved, so that should already be priced in. I think it could lead to some people. It could lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy, which people think that it's going to help price, so they buy. Which, if everyone does that, then it'll help the price go up. So that could happen. There's a small potential where miners could be not selling when the halving happens, right? So they if the miners believe in the coin and they're mining the coin at potentially a loss after the halving, they would still mine and not sell, and that removes some selling pressure on the market, which helps the price. So that could help the price a little bit. But other than that, I don't think it has a huge effect on the price.
Okay. So on a daily basis, when you get out of bed, what is the one aspect of Litecoin which makes you feel most excited and makes you say, I want to work on this, I want to make this happen?
Um, it goes back to the sound money properties, right? It's trying to create something that is good money, right? Something that is decentralized, right? So decentralization is a means to an end, right? The end would be censorship resistant. Right? You have money that no one can stop, which is which a lot of people don't actually think too much about it because they're used to this current system we have. Um, but I mean, that's also why like you see like the drug marketplaces use Bitcoin and Litecoin because it's censorship resistant money, right? It's your money. You should be able to do whatever you want with it without anyone else telling you you can't. And that's kind of the ideals I'm working towards, creating something that people can use, like have control of your own money, right? And that's what excites me about Bitcoin and Litecoin.
On January 3rd, there is this initiative to move your funds away from exchanges and get them into your own personal wallet. You believe that it's a good idea to do it all on the same day?
I'm on the fence for that. I think it's good for. So you're talking about like the proof of reserve, right? Um, I think we also call it the Satoshi run. Basically, kind of a bank run for everyone to withdraw their coins off of exchange to prove that the exchange actually has your coin, and also to get people used to the idea of taking control of your own money and securing your own coins yourself. I kind of like that, right? I like to um, keep exchanges on their toes so that they don't get too lax and start being lax with security and lose people's money. I also like the idea of people being educated or educating themselves on how to secure their own coins and how to basically be your own bank, right? Because if you don't, then the money is under someone else's control and it's not really your money, so you lose that benefit. What I don't like about this initiative is that it could potentially cause people um, to make a mistake and lose money, right? So a lot of people who keep money on exchanges are those that aren't very technical and don't know how to secure their coins, right? So they probably have a lot of malware on their Windows machine. So if they actually move coins from Coinbase to their own personal computer that has already a lot of malware, potentially someone could steal those coins. That would suck, right? For those people trying to do something good and end up losing all their coins.
Yeah, but don't you see any issue with scalability and the idea that the blocks would get filled very quickly and you'd have big fees once again, even with SegWit?
Yeah, but if it's just a 1 day thing, I think it'll be fine. I think honestly, I don't think a lot of people are going to do it. We're not going to see any material effect. I think it's more about just education, just making this a thing, so people will actually say, "What is this proof of reserve?" and look into it and learn about why holding onto their own coins is better than keeping it on an exchange. And I think for education, I think it's good.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, I keep some coins on exchanges. Everyone does if they're trading, right? So most people who are trading are not going to move their coins out of the exchange because they want to keep their orders up, right? So yeah, so I honestly don't think there's going to be a lot of people moving coins off exchanges, even if this campaign is relatively successful.
Do you believe that Coinbase will ever allow the users to be custodians of their own keys?
Um, I mean, there, yeah, I mean, Coinbase has had like I don't know if they still have it, but the multi-sig wallets where users are custodian their own keys. Um, I think the target audience for Coinbase are just everyone, right? Coinbase wants to make it easy for people to buy, sell, and use cryptocurrencies. And owning your own keys is just not easy. So Coinbase does everything to try to make it easy for people to for people, right? So I don't think that's not their goal to make it easy for people. Sorry, that's not their goal to have people own their own keys. So I'm not sure if they're going to go there, but I mean, they did invest in a decentralized exchange. So they are exploring that. So we'll see where that goes.
I mean, the issue is not just with Coinbase. You also have Binance, which in 2017 used to be the place where you would buy into all the shit coins and try to make big gains. And I think which other big player doesn't have custodian keys? I think Robinhood has the same issue, but that's not available in Europe. In Europe,
Mhm.
we have eToro, which is similar to Robinhood.
Yeah.
And also, I think Abra doesn't have a feature to own your own keys.
Yeah. Does or doesn't?
Doesn't, as far as I know.
I think Abra has like a, I'm not sure. Yeah. I think it's, it's always a trade-off between security and usability. Right? Something that's really secure, it's just not as easy to use. It's something that's easy to use, it's hard to secure. I think it's something we constantly have to fight against this trade-off and try to improve both usability and security.
There was recently an issue which some people have pointed out that Coinbase owns about 25% of all the Litecoin supply.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that? Or I think the news came out today or yesterday.
When I was working at Coinbase, I mean they own like what 5% of all Bitcoins, 8% of all Ethereum. 25% is a lot in terms of percentage, but in terms of um, amount of money, I think it's 1/10 of how much Bitcoin they own, right? So was it 25% is like $400 million worth of Litecoin? It's a lot of money, but they own like $4 billion worth of Bitcoin. Coinbase is a big player. I think when um, I mean was that's why I convinced Coinbase to support Litecoin because I know that there's people a lot of people would use Coinbase to buy Litecoins because it's one of the first companies in the U.S. to really support Litecoin. And it turns out to be true, right? So a lot of people bought their Litecoins off Coinbase and actually kept them there. I think I'm not concerned about decentralization because so initially when this news came out, before we found out it was Coinbase, we saw like someone move 25% of all Litecoins over a few days, right? People were concerned: is this a large whale?
Mhm.
Could he potentially get freaked out and sell all his coins and cause the price to crash? But after finding out it's Coinbase, it's actually good, right? So Coinbase represents hundreds of thousands of users, so it's actually decentralized. The problem is that they're keeping all their coins on Coinbase, which I think Coinbase has great security, but still a single point of failure, right? If anything does happen, that's a lot of coins for a hacker to steal, um, and it's I think I think over time we just need to get more educate people to be their own bank and not leave their coins on exchanges. But I'm not especially worried about this today.
So you trust so much in the security that Coinbase and other exchanges, which do not allow users to be custodians, have of their keys?
I wouldn't say. I mean, I worked at Coinbase, so I know um, I helped build it and make sure it's secure and does well. So I definitely trust Coinbase. I don't know about other exchanges. I mean, exchanges get hacked all the time. So I definitely don't recommend people leaving money on exchanges or even Coinbase, right? If they have the ability to secure themselves, I would recommend people secure themselves. But the reality is Coinbase does a better job at securing coins than the average person. So if you, right, it's kind of like leaving money in the bank or leaving money under your mattress, leaving cash, right? People don't leave cash under the mattress. And I don't recommend people leaving cash under their mattress because someone will break in your house and steal all your money, right? Whereas if someone broke into the bank and stole the bank's money, there's it's FDIC insured and you get your money back. So there's no worry, right?
Mhm.
Um, so it's similar to this, right? If you're not technical enough or not just don't know enough to secure your coins yourself, like it's better to leave it on Coinbase than to keep it on your computer, which has malware and you don't do backups properly. So there's various ways that you can lose coins that way.
I don't think people like Jimmy Song or Jameson Lopp or Giacomo Zucco would agree with that. I've spoken to them in different interviews, but this is a
Sure.
different and interesting perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think ideally you want people should have control of their own coins, but you can't expect everyone to be able to do that, right? It, I think it will improve over time as more hardware manufacturers make hardware wallets, and we're looking at like the HTC phone, the HTC Exodus, which will have a built-in secure crypto wallet, right? So people can, it's easy to use and still secure, right? It's important for that to happen, for people to just build out things and make it very easy for people to secure their own coins before that will happen. And we saw that Ledger, for example, sold like 1 million units. That's pretty amazing, right? Having 1 million hardware wallets out there that are being used by people. That just means we're moving towards that direction where people are securing their own coins. So that's good.
Personally, I think I'm confused in terms of making the difference between Ledger and Trezor. I look at them and I see they have similar functionality, and I think Ledger has slightly more coins which it supports.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have any kind of recommendation in regards to which one is the better product?
Mm, they're very similar. They're different depending on the coins you have. I would say you can go either way. I've used both. I think initially Trezor had a better UI, and then Ledger recently launched their Ledger Live app, which is really easy to use also. So yeah, depending on your, I would say either one would be fine.
Okay, they're also priced the same, so at the end of the day, it's just a matter of choosing. But let's get back to Litecoin and talk about the improvements. And when do you think, or do you think that Litecoin will be on the Blockstream satellite to have its blockchain synchronized for all eternity in space?
Sorry, do I think the Litecoin would be on the blockchain satellite?
Yeah.
I actually talked to blockchain a bit about that. And they're kind of focused on Bitcoin, which you can expect. I think eventually we'll go that route. I think blockchain's the satellite is pretty cool, but still, it's kind of it's not that useful for most people, right? It's a cool concept. It plays off of the censorship resistant part, where if you even if your internet is being censored, you can get in sync to the Bitcoin blockchain. I think it'll be useful for the future, but it's not something I'm concerned about for Litecoin today. I'm concerned more about just adoption by people, more so than being censorship resistant from the government, I would say.
Okay, so what about the Liquid network? I know that they plan to add many more coins, and it's a Blockstream product which supposedly or maybe practically helps exchanges make cheaper transactions which are also confidential.
Mm-hmm.
And do you see Litecoin as being one of the next assets being added?
Well, it doesn't work that way, right? So Liquid, you can create tokens or assets on top of the Liquid network. So Litecoin is separate from that. Right? You can't really add Litecoin to Liquid that way. Right? So I mean, you can potentially, so Bitcoin, like Liquid is a sidechain of Bitcoin, right? So you can potentially create a Liquid-like network that is a sidechain to Litecoin, but that's not the same.
Okay. So do you see that happening?
That Blockstream would work on Liquid for Litecoin? I doubt anytime soon.
But would they support a separate team of developers creating a token on the Liquid sidechain for Litecoin?
I mean, you could create a token on Liquid that is backed by Litecoin, right? Kind of like how, yeah. So that could anyone could do that, right? So if you want to create a side chain, sorry, a token on Liquid that is backed by Litecoin that you hold, then you do that, and people can actually send Litecoin to you, and you send them the token, right? You can do it in a atomic way where um, you can sort of move Litecoin onto Liquid if that's useful. Um, yeah, but yeah, anyone can do that. You don't need um, permission from Blockstream
Mm-hmm. Or from Litecoin.
or
It's
from Litecoin. Yeah, I got just remind me. I got like a message from an exchange um, asking me, or they weren't asking if I want if it was okay to list Litecoin. They were saying they were saying let's they're asking if we want to make a deal or something to that effect. So I think they wanted to see if we would pay them to list Litecoin on their exchange. So I just replied, go ahead and list Litecoin. You don't need permission from me.
yeah, that's how it works. But I guess it gets confusing with the existence of the Litecoin Foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and it gives people the impression that they actually have somebody to speak to when they have any dealings with Litecoin.
Kind of. It is definitely an issue because I mean, Litecoin is a decentralized currency, right? So the Litecoin Foundation could disappear tomorrow, and Litecoin would still exist and work fine. I mean, even if no development happens on Litecoin, it will still work, right? Miners will still mine it. They will still make money from mining. The network will still be secure, as long as there's no new uh, like big bugs that are found, right? Then there won't be any issue with Litecoin. So a lot of people complaining about like Litecoin not having a lot of development. I mean, we piggyback off Bitcoin development a lot, so we depend on Bitcoin developers and we do stuff, but we don't really need that much development ourselves. Um, and similar for Litecoin Foundation, like Litecoin Foundation, people complain about Litecoin Foundation not having a lot of money, and that's kind of bad. Like someone was complaining that the Litecoin Foundation treasury is really low, but we didn't print money out of thin air. We didn't print money and give ourselves a lot of money, so of course we don't have money, right? Unlike all these ICO coins, which have like millions, hundreds of $1 millions in their treasury that they can spend on stuff. It's not the same, right? Bitcoin doesn't have Bitcoin Foundation that has a treasury of billions of dollars working on Bitcoin. Um, and the same for Litecoin. So Litecoin Foundation, it is made up of a bunch of people, actually mostly volunteers, because people who are excited about Litecoin, but the foundation just doesn't have the resources to pay to have a huge team. Um, and we're just working on um, Litecoin development and just further adoption of Litecoin. And yeah, and that's the goal of the foundation. But companies don't need to work with the foundation to actually support Litecoin.
Yeah, and I know that your brother is a board member of the Bitcoin Foundation. And do you guys get along? I know that he supported Bitcoin Cash at some point.
We get along, but we have different ideas about things. Like he supported Segwit 2x. I was pretty against Segwit 2x. He thinks Bitcoin Cash is just like Bitcoin. I definitely don't agree. So we definitely disagree on many things, but it's fine.
So which one of you got into Bitcoin first?
I did. So I introduced Bobby to Bitcoin actually back in 2011, but he didn't really get in 2011. Like he kind of understood it, but he had concerns about it. But I think in 2013 he really got into Bitcoin with like BTC China and BTCC.
Mm-hmm. That's a big market, I guess, or used to be before the government got involved too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But let's get back to Litecoin and talk about the state of Lightning. And I even saw there is a question on Twitter about somebody asking if there is any way to check the amount of Lightning nodes being deployed for Litecoin.
I mean, yeah. So there's the site 1ml.com. It
Hmm.
supports both Bitcoin and Litecoin, so you can check there. I mean, Lightning Network is live for Litecoin, but not a lot of people are using it. It's still fairly new. It's still, I mean, it's still new technology. It's still not easy to deploy Lightning nodes and play with Lightning. That will improve over time. I mean, the Lightning developers are working hard on improving Lightning.
I heard during the last Magical Crypto Friends episode that you
Mm-hmm.
have a Casa node right next to your desk. And I was
Yeah,
curious if it has functionality for Litecoin.
not yet. So Casa mentioned in one of their tweets that they're working on Litecoin support. Um, but currently, the Casa node only supports Bitcoin. But I mean, it's not. I mean, it's not. It wouldn't be hard for them to support Litecoin. Right? I think it's more about the UI of it, and also about would it support it together, like Bitcoin, Litecoin together, and potentially allow for atomic swaps and things like that. I think that's the direction they're going towards. Um, but nothing announced by them yet.
That'd be really cool. And I guess I would actually order one and put it on my desk, knowing that I can actually exchange between two coins without resorting to a practical centralized exchange or a shady decentralized one. And
Yeah.
also, you get to store and synchronize two blockchains at the same time, which is impressive. I'm not sure if their current storage, I think it's 1 gigabyte or 500, 1 terabyte or 500 gigabytes. I'm not sure if it can take on the long term both Bitcoin and Litecoin. So I think they should be thinking of a way to scale with storage.
Yeah. I mean, it's people don't understand. A lot of people don't understand why the block size is such an issue, right? Why don't we just increase the block size to 32 megabyte or 1 terabyte? Um, it's because like it's resource intensive, right? It's like if everyone needs have have a like if no one can run a node, then decentralization is dead. Then it becomes centralized to people who actually can run nodes. And if you can't run a node, then you just have to listen to those that can about what is a valid transaction, what's not a valid transaction. And the fact that you can still run a Bitcoin node, a full Bitcoin node, and a full Litecoin node on a Raspberry Pi device is awesome, right? Anyone can build or buy this device for. You can build it for like hundreds of dollars. You can buy it for 300, and it just works. It has the Bitcoin full node. It has Lightning, and you can do Lightning transactions, or you can do on-chain transactions for with a device like that. It's pretty cool, and that's why like it flew off the shelves. Right? It's not cheap, but it's cool. I mean, it's not. You can build it for like hundreds of dollars, but some people are willing to pay 300 just because it's easy and it's all set up and it just works.
Yeah, but usually we don't think too much about the amount of nodes that we have. And that's a big issue if we want decentralization, which is, as you said, a means to achieving censorship resistance. And I guess I don't run a node all the time just because I need the storage on my SSD drive. And I've been
Mm-hmm.
told that if I run an SSD, it's a bad idea to have too many rewrites to it because it would burn very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I've
Yeah,
actually burnt an SSD back in June, I think, when I was trying to run a Lightning node.
really.
Yeah, but it was still under warranty.
Yeah,
So they gave me a new one.
yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I think. I mean, you don't need to run your own node, right? For most people, they're fine trusting um, like another node, or I mean, most people even just use Coinbase, put their coins at Coinbase, right? So, of course, those people don't need to run their own node. But the idea, the what's powerful is that you can if you want to, right? So it's like with the current financial system. you can't get away from banks, right? You just have to use them, right? You just can't do that. But with Bitcoin and Litecoin, you can be your own bank, right? You can run your own node. So running your own node means that you can't be tricked by anyone about what is or is not a valid transaction. If someone said they sent you $1,000 or whatever, if someone sent you like 10 Litecoins, if you run your own node, you can know for sure that you actually got those 10 Litecoins. If you don't, you have to trust like a block explorer or another node to tell you, right? Of course, it's far fetched for those explorers and nodes to collude against you and tell you that you got coins but you didn't. But it has happened before. Like blockchain.info at one point has shown like a invalid transaction as valid. It was just a mistake in their code. And it might be like I think it was a double spend. They showed like the one that actually didn't confirm as a confirmed transaction. You thought that you had a confirmed transaction, but then afterwards it got taken away because it's not actually confirmed. So that has happened, and also the problem is that they will make decisions for you, right? In terms of like hard forks and things, right? So if you left your coins on Coinbase after the Bitcoin Cash hard fork, you only had BCH. You don't have BSV coins. They eventually will give you your BSV coins, but they may decide not to, and it's just not under your control.
But do you think you can still run a Bitcoin Cash node if they have 64 megabyte blocks?
It'll be very hard, right? It'll be much harder. You can still do it, but like just like Ethereum, it's really hard today for anyone to run an Ethereum node. It will be the same for Bitcoin Cash. It's trade-offs, right? If you want Bitcoin Cash supporters want to put a whole social network on the blockchain. They want to put all the tweets or whatever on the blockchain. They want to put they want everything on the blockchain. Yeah, that's fine, but it's not going to be decentralized. Right? It's like I'm not working towards a better PayPal. I want something that's totally different.
Yeah, that's also what Tim May said in his last interview before passing, that he's very critical of cryptocurrencies becoming too centralized in terms of being held by exchanges, which only allow you to withdraw a certain amount a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also you have certain regions where you're not allowed to run a node and you have to compromise, or you're not allowed to mine. Or you just have cryptocurrencies which are very centralized in their nature, and they're very, core when they were created.
Yeah, and I mean there's I'm not that interested in those cryptocurrencies, but there's room for everyone, right? So some people don't care about decentralization. I mean, that's why like coins like Ripple are popular, right? People think that working with the banks and just being kind of like the PayPal 2.0, right, is useful, and that's fine. I think, yeah, but I don't care about a coin like Ripple when it's kind of centralized. A company owns a huge amount of it, and they're using it to it's just different. It's not the same. It's coming from a different angle, but there's room for everyone, I think.
Yeah. And that's why I had my mind blown when I read, I think it was a post by Luke Dash, the Bitcoin Core developer. And
Yeah.
he said that we actually need smaller blocks in Bitcoin. And in a time when you find people who still complain that SegWit2x was a good idea, that having 2 megabyte blocks would have been better, you have somebody who is a Bitcoin Core developer, and he says, I think 600 kilobytes would be enough. And his considerations are mainly because it would be quicker to synchronize the blockchain.
Yeah, I mean, he comes up. I don't totally agree with him, but I see where he's coming from, right? He wants people to be able to quickly sync the blockchain, to be able to quickly for things to work well, and then move the scaling to off-chain solution, right? So there's a trade-off, right? So I think if Lightning really becomes used, it could work. I think it would be hard to convince everyone that we should decrease the block size today. But he keeps pushing for that, and I'm not sure why he does. But I mean, he's an interesting person. Yeah. So I mean, different people have different opinions, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's why this space is so interesting because you have all these people coming up with different propositions. And right now, Bitcoin Satoshi's vision, or BCHSV, or whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
pretends to be the government and enterprise friendly version of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean that's just BSV is. I mean, Craig Wright is just. I just don't understand. Right? He's talking about like patents. He's talking about He's talking about like I think one of his last tweets was like in a few years, 1 billion people will be using my technology. I'm like, he's so like full of himself.
Yeah, I don't know that because he blocked me. So,
He blocked like everyone, and I think his Twitter feed is private. But there's like a bot that follows him that retweets what he tweets, and just it's kind of a joke. And I just today I saw someone reply and say, "I thought this was a like a comedy account. Didn't realize it was actually his tweets because his tweets are so ridiculous. His real tweets are so ridiculous. It just seems like a parody account."
there's no way of knowing on Twitter. You have all these cartoonish accounts which actually speak more truth than people who reveal their own identities.
That's true. That's definitely true.
But a lot of people get attracted to Tiffany Hayden and they believe that she's brilliant. And when she says that XRP will flip Bitcoin at some point or be valued at some crazy amount like $1,000, and there's not even enough money in the world to
Mm-hmm.
have that value for XRP.
Yeah, the value of XRP today is already quite ridiculous. I didn't expect this. Yeah,
But it was even more ridiculous when it got to $3. So
that's true. That is true.
I actually lost a lot of money shorting XRP last December. I saw
Yeah,
it
don't.
went up to 50 cents and I said to myself, there is no way it can go up because it was 20 cents all year long and this is already too much. And I shorted it and I lost the money.
Trading cryptocurrency is definitely not for the average person. It's pretty risky to
Yeah.
short anything, even if they have because like the yeah, even if you don't think a coin has value, it can do crazy stuff.
Right. But let's get back to Litecoin and talk about confidential transactions, which you mentioned, I think, on Magical Crypto a few episodes ago. And you wanted to be an opt-in feature, just like in Zcash, and it would happen through a soft fork, right?
Yeah. So I mentioned previously, fungibility is one of the fungibility and privacy go hand in hand. It's one of the few. It was one of the only properties of sound money that is not uh, that we don't have with Bitcoin and Litecoin. Um, the example is like if you're sending coins to buy coffee, if you send coins that you just recently purchased off an exchange, let's say you purchased 100 Litecoins off an exchange, you send it to buy coffee. Now the barista knows or could see that you actually have 100 Litecoins, right? It's just I think financial privacy is important, even if you're not doing anything illegal. It's important to have financial privacy. And with Litecoin today, you have to really think about which coins to send to. Like I don't know how you use Litecoin, Bitcoin, but the way I use it, like I have all my inputs and I know which one where coins came from, right? And you kind of don't want to mix the inputs and outputs. You just have to make sure that you preserve some privacy, and that's kind of really annoying, right? It's not good. It's not a good user experience when you have to deal with that. Um, so adding something like confidential transaction will get us closer to good privacy and good fungibility, and that's something that we're currently thinking about and exploring for Litecoin.
But I see a lot of people who are confused about what this would mean. And they think that this would slow down the adoption just because they think it's absolute privacy like in Monero. But confidential transactions all actually mean that a third party cannot see the amount which you send and the amount that you have in your wallet, right?
Yeah, so you can basically the amount could be hidden, right? So with confidential transaction, the network still enforces that the amount being sent is the same as the amount.
Yeah,
That's
that
okay.
was mom, sorry.
It's okay. I was saying the network still enforces that the amount being sent equals the amount being received. So you don't no coins is created from a transaction, even though you can't tell how much is in each like input or output. You still know cryptographically that the sum of the input equals sum of the output. So nothing is created. Um, but the idea is that let's say you bought 100 Litecoins from an exchange. You withdraw it into a confidential transaction, so no one can see that it's actually 100. So when I send 100 to buy coffee, um, the obviously the recipient will know that they got the coins, right? But they can't see what the change is and what the sent amount is. So I could be sending you 1,000 and getting a change of 999, or I could be sending you two and getting a change of one, and you just don't know. And that's the privacy that you get from using confidential transactions.
Yeah, because right now the issue is that it's unnatural when you go to the supermarket and you give the cashier a $20 bill. She doesn't know how much money you have in your wallet, and I think that's what Ricardo Spani said in Magical
Yeah,
Crypto. That's where I got the example from.
yeah,
But that shouldn't happen in cryptocurrencies. Nobody should know how much money you have in your wallet unless you purposely disclose or you
correct.
give out your public key so people can check on a block explorer.
Yeah. Um, and there's two things about privacy, right? There's one is the amount, right? The other is the routing, right? So um, with Monero, they use ring transactions, ring signatures for transactions. So you sign like 6 different inputs, so you don't know which one the money actually comes from. So um, that hides like the route of how the money is flowing. Um, and then confidential transactions, you hide the amount. So for Litecoin, I think Lightning Network is going to be pretty good for hiding like the route. It'll be good for privacy to a certain degree. So I think adding confidential transaction will help with Litecoin's privacy and fungibility.
Yeah, and that would be very good news if you ask me. But
Yeah.
I know it's a controversial and divisive issue because some people are used to Litecoin being similar to Bitcoin. And
Mm-hmm.
unless Bitcoin also implements the feature, it's going to be weird for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's definitely, we'll see. It's definitely controversial. Um, yeah, it's also, there's also a concern about regulatory concern, right? Well, how would exchanges feel towards Litecoin with confidential transaction? I think with the recent addition of Zcash to Coinbase and also Gemini, it shows that it can be work like it can work well with exchanges because it's opt-in and exchanges can ask for the view key, so they can see what's going on. Um, it's just that the amount is hidden, right? If you use opt-in confidential transaction. So I think it should be fine. I think it's good. I do think we need to improve fungibility for Bitcoin and Litecoin, and this is a good start.
Mm-hmm. And I guess a lot of people don't know how to use confidential transactions in Zcash. They think that the transactions are private by default, but actually they have to obfuscate the transactions by paying extra. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's a number of transactions which are being made back and forth. So there is no way to track back.
Yeah.
Did I describe it well?
Um, the I mean, it's very different, right? Zcash uses zero knowledge proofs to do the transaction. So you actually hide everything, right? The transaction amount and also the route. So with Litecoin, with content transaction, it's quite a bit different technology. I think it's more the Zcash zk snarks technology is definitely it's better for privacy. But it's also unproven. It also uses up a lot more resources. Like I don't know what the current number is with their latest release, but with that's why it's more expensive and also takes more time, like computer resources to CPU resources to actually create these zk snarks transactions and to actually process them. So it's definitely a strain on the network.
But I know that the Zcash confidential transactions are expensive, and would Litecoin provide a cheaper alternative?
It'll be cheaper, but still, confidential transactions, even with bulletproofs today, is still about a 3 times increase in size of the transaction in terms of like the size of the transaction. So you would expect a 3 times increase in fees you pay because your fees are based off of the transaction size. So you can imagine it being 3 times more expensive than a regular transaction. But we're not. Litecoin doesn't have a space constraint today. It has 4 times the block size of Bitcoin. So I'm not concerned about the space usage of confidential transactions.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you this before, but I think I forgot. But you were the first to accept SegWit and prove to the world that it actually works through Litecoin. And how is SegWit adoption going on with Litecoin? I know that Bitcoin has some issues with stubborn exchanges and people who just don't want to adopt SegWit. Is it better with Litecoin?
Um, First to correct, Litecoin wasn't the first coin to activate SegWit. I believe there are other coins that activated SegWit before Litecoin, but it was the first major coin that activated. Right, that has like a lot of value on it. In terms of SegWit adoption, I honestly don't track SegWit adoption because it's not that important to me. If people need to use SegWit, they will use it, right? If you need to use Lightning, you need SegWit, right? You need transaction malleability, so you have to use SegWit, and people use it, right? For exchanges, if they don't care about paying more fees, right? So SegWit transactions will be cheaper. If you don't care about paying more fees, and most exchanges don't, they don't really need to support SegWit transactions, right? They can store it in their regular transaction, just pay a little bit more fees. Litecoin is not constrained, doesn't have block size issues right now, so I'm not concerned about people not using SegWit. I think it's designed to incentivize people to use SegWit if they want to pay less fees. So the incentives will work. There's no reason for me to be concerned about how much of the network is using SegWit today.
Mm-hmm. I think I've read that there was this consensus between Litecoin miners to reduce the fees by 10 times. Did that actually happen?
So it's not really by Litecoin miners. It's kind of just the recommended fees for the network. So it's like the minimum fee. So this is something that the developers and I have come together to talk about, and we decided to reduce the fees by 10 times. So this will happen with the next release of 0.17, and then as everyone update to 0.17, they'll be paying less fees. I mean, fees is not an issue today. It's still very very low with Litecoin. I think it's a trade-off, right? If you make the fees too low, you get a lot of spam, right? It becomes like really cheap for someone to spam the blockchain, creating transactions that aren't really moving any value, right? That aren't really useful. It's just creating random transactions that just shuffle money around and then bloat the blockchain. So it makes that attack cheap, and that's not good. So it's kind of a trade-off whether how cheap we want the fees to be.
So how do you feel about Schnorr signatures?
I think it's good. It's definitely coming to Bitcoin, and by that, it will also come to Litecoin. I think, yeah, things. Bitcoin developers are definitely working on very cool stuff, like with Schnorr signatures and scriptless scripts. Lots of amazing stuff coming out in Bitcoin, and a lot of that is thanks to thanks to SegWit, right? Now we have SegWit, all these can be added as soft forks, and without all the drama, hopefully without all the drama. These just like strict improvements on Bitcoin scaling. So insecurity, yeah, and adding smart contract stuff to Bitcoin and Litecoin.
Do you think that in the long term, Bitcoin and Litecoin will actually provide all the functionalities of Ethereum?
Mm, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't. It won't. I don't think Bitcoin, Litecoin, will ever be Turing complete. So you can't do everything, and it's a different focus, right? So I think with Bitcoin and Litecoin, the focus is just to be sound money. Like the important thing is value transfer of value, and that's the key, right? And programmable transfer of value. So that's why adding more opcodes and more scripts to make it easier to do programming, to do smarter contracts with Bitcoin and Litecoin is important. But you don't have to do like everything, right? Whereas you don't have to be the world computer. I think having a world computer on the blockchain is crazy because it doesn't scale, right? Having everyone, all the nodes running every single computation doesn't make any sense. Right? If Google, I've said that many times, if Google and Amazon created a smart contract system that is centralized but works like 1,000 times more efficient than Ethereum, people will use it, right? CryptoKitties doesn't need the decentralization of Ethereum. Most apps don't.
Yeah, but they are just cool proofs of concept. They can just show how it works. They are just interfaces to help people get acquainted to the new technologies. Just like I think in Windows they had the game Solitaire, which was maybe the best way to learn how to use the mouse.
Yeah, Minesweeper.
Minesweeper, yeah. It took me like 15 years to finish my first game of Minesweeper.
Minesweeper was fun.
I also want to ask you about the Litecoin community, or
Mm-hmm.
how they call themselves, the Litecoin fam. And what I noticed, and I even wrote an article about it, is that unlike a lot of communities, they don't just tweet, they don't just spend their time at their desk and type about what they think their vision is of Litecoin. They just go out there and they talk to actual sellers and retailers, and they convince people to accept both Bitcoin and Litecoin. And I guess that's the advantage, that being on the side of Bitcoin allows you to also introduce Litecoin as a cheaper alternative. But I appreciate this grassroots approach and their energy. You have John Kim and John Moore, who are
Mm-hmm.
very active all the time. It's very hard to keep up with them.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. Yeah, I definitely am very thankful of everyone who's basically volunteering their time to help push for adoption. I think it's key for Litecoin, right? It's the basically Litecoin is currently a very speculative currency. That's why like a lot of people keep their coins on exchanges like Coinbase because they're being traded back and forth, and that's good for liquidity. But we need to move towards more utility, right? More people actually spending the coin, having more merchants accepted, having more places to spend your coins. I think that's what will take us to the next level, so to speak. So definitely, I'm definitely pushing for adoption wherever I can, and I'm very excited to see others are also.
Yeah, I guess your philosophy is different from that of people who think it's just a store of value and a way for people to keep their wealth in a way that cannot be taken away by their governments.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's definitely that too, right? It's you need both, right? If it's just a store of value, like gold is a great store of value, but it's hard to actually use it, right? So that's why people minted or governments minted like gold coins because it makes it easy to use, right? Um, but it's but just being a store of value will only get you like halfway there. You still have to be able to easy to actually spend it, and that's why I'm very excited about Lightning Network. I think that's the other part of it. It will make it easy to spend for merchants to accept Bitcoin and Litecoin and for people to spend it. And also it helps Bitcoin scale, right? You can actually use it without bloating the blockchain. So you can do microtransactions. Right? You can send um, tiny amounts of Bitcoin or Litecoin, and it won't it will only settle on chain, so it doesn't have to take up the transaction of block space. Right.
Right. And also, I think the approach, which you understood very well in 2017, was that it doesn't matter. It's not just about the speculative aspect. I think that a lot of projects which were launched had extra features and they had maybe fundamentally good ideas, but their approach was not to have as many users as possible, but to be listed on as many exchanges and allow the people who invested to increase their investments. And it was all about speculation when they could just showcase the technology in a more practical way.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, that's why like the exchanges were able to charge like listing fees, right? Because all these ICOs and coins, um, they they want to be listed so people can trade it and actually pump the price up, right? And that's all they cared about. Um, yeah, and unfortunately, like with so many coins out there, it's hard to rise above everyone and for people to notice you. So that's why all these like white papers, all these like marketing stuff claiming this is the next big thing, and then yeah, so all these scams and stuff. It's kind of unfortunate that, but it is what it is, I guess.
I think the part which makes them scams is not technological necessarily. It's just the part which has pre-mines and the marketing and the way they approach the market from day one, the way they launch. Maybe that the ideas can be used to be implemented in Bitcoin through soft forks at some point if they are that good.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that won't make them any money. So that's why they launch it as an ICO, make a lot of money, and then market the heck out of it.
So I don't think I have any more questions for now. I'm
Okay.
happy that we spoke and this was
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing what you do. I think it helps a lot too.
I hope so. Otherwise, it's just work in vain. But at least I get paid for it, so it's fine. But I'd rather do this than review ICO white papers and talk about airdrops and
Yeah.
look at anything that is below the top 10 on CoinMarketCap. I think
Mhm.
Monero sometimes is below top 10, which is unfortunate, but
It
anyway.
is right now. This right now.
To be
Cool.
honest, I've never approached XRP just because I know that their community can be so easy to enrage that even if you say Ripple instead of XRP, they block you and they call you names, and it's insane. I don't
Yeah.
want to go into that territory.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's great chatting with you.
Yeah, same.
We'll talk later.
Sure. So,
Okay.
bye.
Bye.